Albert Einstein was a curious boy from the very beginning. When he was 5 years old, he lay in his bed on a warm summer evening. His father, Hermann, had given him a small brass compass. As Albert held the little instrument in his hands, he watched the thin needle move without any help from a person. The needle always pointed north. He had never seen anything like it. He wondered how the small compass could know which way was north. He felt a quiet excitement rise inside him. That moment became one of his first steps toward a lifetime of questions and discoveries. Albert lived in Ulm, Germany, in a simple home where his parents ran a small electrical equipment shop. His mother, Pauline, often played the piano. When she pressed the keys, sweet melodies filled the rooms. Sometimes Albert would sit nearby and listen, closing his eyes to imagine colors and patterns dancing in the air. Music and science entered his life side by side. In one hand, he held the mystery of invisible forces. In the other hand, he held the gentle comfort of song. At school, Albert was not like other children. He did not always follow the rules in a crowded classroom. He preferred to think quietly, drawing pictures of spinning tops and weaving stories about the movement of planets. His teachers sometimes saw him as a daydreamer. They did not understand why he stared out the window. But at home, his parents encouraged him to follow his own path. When Albert felt frustrated by his schoolwork, he would go back to his beloved compass and to his mother's piano, finding peace and strength in both. Music became a second language for Albert. At age 6, he tried the violin for the first time. The wooden instrument felt smooth and cool against his cheek. His small fingers pressed the strings, making soft, scratchy sounds at first. He practiced every day, learning scales and simple songs. Slowly, the notes grew clearer. The violin taught him discipline and patience. Each time he played, he opened a door to another world, one where emotions and ideas flowed without words. In the evenings, when the sky turned dark and the stars appeared, Albert would set the violin aside and pick up his compass again. He liked to hold the compass close to his heart and feel its warmth. He thought about how the Earth's hidden forces guided the needle. He felt as if the compass and the violin were best friends, each showing him a different side of wonder. One showed him the secrets of nature. The other showed him the power of feeling. Albert's home in Ulm was a place of gentle discovery. The walls echoed with piano notes and soft footsteps in the shop below. He smelled the scent of solder and metal from his father's workbench, mixed with the sweet smell of piano polish and paper. At night, his mother wrapped him in a soft blanket and hummed a lullaby, her voice a steady reminder that he was safe. In his dreams, the compass needle spun among clouds of music, and Albert felt both calm and eager for more. As he grew older, Albert's love for both music and science deepened. He practiced violin for hours, learning more difficult pieces. He also read every book he could find about stars, magnets, and electricity. He drew diagrams of magnetic fields, imagining them as lines of light. He sketched bicycles and simple machines, wondering how gears and levers worked together. He began to understand that the world was full of hidden patterns waiting to be discovered. Looking back, Albert knew that his childhood fascination with the compass and his practice on the violin were two sides of the same gift. Music taught him to listen carefully and to feel the rhythm of time itself. Science taught him to ask questions and to seek clear answers. In both, he learned that wonder and hard work go hand in hand. The silent needle of the compass and the sweet song of the violin both guided him toward a future where he would change the way people understood space, time, and light. Those first years in Ulm set Albert Einstein on a path of lifelong learning. He would always remember the night he held his compass in the soft lamplight and heard his mother's gentle lullaby. In that quiet house, a boy discovered two powerful truths: that the world hides many secrets, and that those secrets can become a song in the hands of a child who dares to listen. Albert Einstein arrived at his new school in Munich with a mix of hope and nervousness. He sat at the long wooden desks, listening as the teacher's voice rose and fell in the echoing classroom. The rules were strict. Every student had to copy the lessons exactly, speak only when allowed, and memorize facts without question. But Albert's mind worked differently. He wanted to ask questions, to pause and understand. Day after day, he felt a knot of frustration in his chest when the lessons moved too slowly for him. At home, Albert found comfort in his small geometry book. He called it his sacred little book because its pages were full of shapes and proofs that made sense to him. The diagrams of triangles and circles spoke a clear language. Each evening he would sit by candlelight and solve one problem after another, feeling a quiet joy when the answers appeared. While his classmates recited dates and names, Albert explored the elegance of lines and angles. One day the headmaster sent a note home. He told Albert's parents that their son would never amount to much. The words landed like a cold stone in Albert's heart. He clenched his small fist but refused to accept their finality. In his mind, he whispered, "I can learn anything I choose." That belief became his secret strength, the gift that helped him keep moving forward. A spark of hope came from Uncle Jacob, who lived nearby. Jacob was an engineer who loved to solve puzzles. He called mathematics a merry science, and he had a way of making numbers feel friendly. When Albert visited, the two would sit under a chestnut tree in the backyard. Jacob would draw simple problems on a wooden board. One day he asked, "If 3 apples cost 6 cents, how many apples can you buy with 18 cents? Albert's eyes lit up as he did the math in his head. The smile on Jacob's face told Albert that learning could be fun. At the same time, family friend Max Talmud introduced Albert to a set of books called People's Books on Natural Sciences. The series had 21 volumes, each one packed with stories about heat, light, and motion. Albert read them with growing excitement. The chapter on thermodynamics, how heat moves and changes, captured his imagination. He decided to try a simple experiment. He placed an ice cube on a metal spoon and held it under a desk lamp. He watched as the ice slowly melted into a small pool of water. He wrote down each detail in his notebook, thrilled that science could be discovered at home. Outside of lessons, Albert often sat alone on the playground. He watched other children run and shout, feeling a quiet pang of loneliness. Yet, he turned that solitude into a gift. He practiced his violin scales, read books about stars, and sketched diagrams of how magnets worked. He learned that thinking for himself could be more powerful than following the crowd. Slowly, Albert's self-study paid off. He gained confidence in his own ideas. He spoke more in class, asking thoughtful questions that surprised his teachers. Though the school system tried to shape every student the same way, Albert followed his own path. He discovered that learning was not just about memorizing facts. It was about asking why and finding answers with his own hands and mind. By the time he left Munich, Albert had grown more certain of his abilities. The geometry book, the experiments under the lamp, and the puzzles with Uncle Jacob had opened doors inside him. He learned that school was only one way to gain knowledge, and that true learning often came from curiosity and hard work outside the classroom. This lesson stayed with him for the rest of his life, guiding him as he moved forward on his extraordinary journey. In 1905, Albert Einstein worked as a patent clerk in Bern, Switzerland. Each day, he examined technical drawings of new inventions. To many, this job seemed ordinary. But for Einstein, it offered quiet time to think deeply about physics. In the evenings and on weekends, he returned to his true passion, understanding the secrets of light, heat, and motion. That year became known as his miracle year because he published 4 papers that would change science forever. His first paper proposed that light behaves not only as a wave, but also as tiny particles, which he called quanta. Before this idea, most scientists thought light was only a smooth wave. Einstein's proposal explained puzzling experiments on how light can knock electrons out of metal. By suggesting that light comes in packets of energy, he laid the groundwork for the field now called quantum mechanics. Next, he turned his attention to a strange motion seen under a microscope. When tiny particles float in a liquid, they jiggle and dance in random paths. Some scientists had doubted whether molecules and atoms even existed. In his second paper, Einstein showed that this Brownian motion could be explained by invisible molecules constantly bumping into the particles. His calculations provided strong evidence that atoms and molecules are real, tiny building blocks of matter. Just a few months later, Einstein published his third paper on the electrodynamics of moving bodies. In simple terms, he asked, what happens to space and time when objects move very fast? He showed that our familiar notions of absolute time and distance must change when speeds approach the speed of light. From his equations sprang the famous relationship E equals mc2, which means that mass and energy are 2 forms of the same thing. This idea helped people see that a small amount of matter can release a huge amount of energy. Finally, Einstein's fourth paper explored how the inertia of a body depends on its energy content. He built on the mass-energy equation to show that if a body gains energy, its mass increases slightly. Though the change is extremely small in everyday life, this insight deepened our understanding of how matter and energy interact. Imagine how Einstein must have felt as each paper was accepted by the leading physics journal of the time. He went from a quiet clerk to a celebrated thinker almost overnight. At home, his wife, Mileva Marek, encouraged him and discussed ideas late into the night. He must have felt both excitement and a bit of wonder at the impact his simple, elegant equations would have. These 4 papers did more than explain specific experiments. They opened new ways of seeing the world. Scientists began to explore the quantum nature of light and matter. They tested time dilation, discovering that fast-moving clocks tick more slowly than those on Earth. They used the mass-energy relationship to develop new technologies, including nuclear power. Even more, Einstein's work inspired people to believe that bold ideas can come from anyone who is willing to think differently. The legacy of 1905 stretches into our daily lives. Your smartphone's camera relies on principles of light and electrons. Modern GPS systems correct for time differences predicted by relativity, so your directions stay accurate. Medical imaging devices use concepts from quantum physics to peer inside the body without cutting it open. All these advances trace back to Einstein's simple papers written at his modest desk. Beyond practical inventions, Einstein's miracle year reminds us of the power of curiosity and perseverance. He showed that deep questions about what light is, how atoms behave, and how space and time are linked can yield revolutionary answers. He trusted his own thinking, even when it went against accepted views. For learners of English and science alike, his story offers an inspiring example. With clear questions, careful thought, and patience, anyone can spark change. Today, more than a century later, we still celebrate Einstein's miracle year. It teaches us to look at familiar things, light dancing on a wall, dust stirring in a beam of sunlight, the ticking of a clock on a fast-moving train, and to ask, what if the answer is not what everyone expects? In that simple moment of wonder, we follow in Einstein's footsteps and open the door to new discoveries. As we reach the end of Albert Einstein's story, we see a clear path from a curious child to one of the most celebrated scientists in history. He began as a small boy in Ulm, Germany, holding a simple compass and feeling the pull of invisible forces. He grew up in a home filled with music, where his mother's piano and his own violin lessons taught him patience and creativity. At school in Munich, he faced strict rules and teachers who did not always understand his questions. Yet he found freedom in a geometry book, in puzzles from his uncle Jakob, and in home experiments with ice and heat. Later, as a patent clerk in Bern, he combined everyday work with late-night thinking about light, motion, and energy. In 1905, his miracle year, he published 4 short papers that changed our view of the universe. He showed that light can behave like particles, that atoms are real, that space and time bend when objects move fast, and that mass and energy are 2 sides of the same coin. These ideas led to technologies we use every day, like GPS, cameras, and medical imaging. Through every stage, Einstein never lost his sense of wonder. He asked simple questions, why and how, and he trusted his own thinking. He balanced creativity with discipline. He faced doubt, loneliness, and criticism, but he stayed true to his path of self-directed learning. His story teaches us that great discoveries often start with a single question and a willingness to explore answers our own way. The deepest lesson from Einstein's journey is that curiosity and persistence can overcome any obstacle. When you feel stuck in a classroom, a job, or a language lesson, remember his compass and geometry book. Ask your own questions, read, experiment, and practice every day. Use simple tools, flashcards, short stories, or mini experiments to explore new ideas. Be patient with yourself. Celebrate small victories. Over time, small steps lead to big changes. Congratulations! By listening to and reading this story, you have practiced your English listening and comprehension skills. Now let's test your memory. What object first sparked young Albert's deep curiosity? A. A compass. B. A violin. Please comment your answer with A or B below. We love to read your responses and see you interact. If you enjoyed this story and want more content like this, please subscribe to our channel. Your support gives us motivation to create more high-quality English learning stories. If you can, consider donating to help cover our production costs. Early in our journey, we work for free to help you learn, but your donations make a big difference. Thank you for learning with us and for your generous support.